So what an incredible joy is the heart, the natural heart. Such an incredible joy for absolutely no reason, right? Not attached to sense perception, not needing things to invoke a sense of pleasure, just in the simplicity of being, a natural joy, just in the sense of openness to the heart of being, a natural joy, a natural contentedness, a simplicity, where the play of the world, the sticky Maya, cannot touch this wide open field of grace that is never touched, never disturbed, and yet knows in the absolute essence that there is only one, that even the sticky Maya is made from the same substance, the same essence. And we could call that love or bliss. And that the glory of the human life is to come to this discovery in your own heart, to come through your own heart to the heart, to realize that it's all one wide open, joyful heart, one wide open field of grace, a field of bliss. That when we are ensconced in the identification with mind, that it can seem so far away. It can seem to the mind that is identified with the story, with the struggle, with the seeming suffering, can seem so far away. But the glory is you're only ever a single thought away from this joyful truth. And it is in the non-identification with that thought, the thought that acts like a blinder, the thought that acts like a divider. We cannot choose to drop the thought. We cannot choose to drop the story. And all of our efforts to try that will seem in vain and will, in a way, feel like chasing your own tail. In a way, possibly even increasing the frustration and the sense of discord. And yet, what we have been given naturally is the ability to be aware that when we drop back, zoom out, to be aware of whatever seems to be discordant, whatever seems to be moving and changing, we find the stillness, the silence, the wide open presence of being. We find the joy, the simple, inexplicable joy in the simplicity of the heart that is. We find that which has never been touched, tainted, or disturbed in any way by the thoughts, by the story, by the narrative. That in a way, the whole story of my life is like entering a movie theater that the mind is creating. My story, my life, my characters, my dream. And if we take ownership and we're identified, then we will feel the result of being entangled. In a way, this unfolding is so incredibly simple. And yet, it can be hard to be simple because we have learned to be complex. We have learned that we have to do and try and gather knowledge and techniques. In a way, it's about letting go of it all, dropping something every day. Stop gathering, stop gaining. It's like stop building the prison of the mind's desire, gathering more things, wanting more things, more experiences. It's about letting go of something every day, at least something every day. Ideally, of course, we're letting go of we're just dropping off beliefs and concepts and ideas. We're just shedding. So we come to not something new. We come to remember, who are we? What are we before we gathered so much? Who are we before gathering so much? What is this true nature? Without the story, without the narrative. The truth is that we can do nothing. We can try as hard as we might imagine that we could, but it will bring us nowhere. It's in the dropping into this moment so fully, dropping into the presence of being so fully, into the simplicity of now, just being here now. Opening to the truth of what your own presence is. Opening to the truth of the presence of being that you are. The stop. The stop itself is the letting go, the natural letting go, the stop. Just stop. Stop trying. Stop doing. Stop imagining that you're getting anywhere. Just stop it all. And just be here in the glorious wow of now. The wow, the freedom, the wide open spaciousness of now. Where there is the discovery of presence, the natural wide open presence of being. Just simply being here. The radiant light is shining. And it's all about the resonance, all about the frequency. That the knowing in you, the principle of illumination in you is speaking. It looks like speaking through this form. Your own heart speaking to you of the glory that you already know. So you see, there's nothing to do, there's nowhere to get to. It's just about being here, available for the grace, for the frequency of remembrance, to come so alive in the silence, in the stillness. And this is where this simple joy is. It's a peace, a contentedness, a simplicity. It's a desirelessness, to want nothing. When we truly want nothing, it's as if we open to this wide open field of aliveness, alive grace, pure potentiality in this field of infinite possibility. It's as if when we want nothing, we open to the flow of natural creativity, a flow of natural inspiration. It's so enlivening when we're not moving from, let's say, these filters that are overlaying the flow of life and limiting and restricting, limiting the possibilities, because the frequency that we are living at is what we are creating from. Consciousness is creating from the frequency that we are living at. So the finer the frequency, the more infinite the field of infinite possibilities, the more wildly alive is the flow of creative intelligence. In a way, it's not even a sense of lack, because even if we're living at a frequency where the possibilities that creation can offer are limited, it's exactly the same grace. It's exactly the same inspiration, because it's moving to reflect the patterns of limitation. It's bringing us into connection with exactly what we need to be brought into connection with, so that we can feel the discordance, can feel the contraction, we can feel the tightness, we can feel the sense of being held in patterns, we can feel that we're not feeling completely free. So it's not that we're lacking in grace if we're living at a frequency which is resonating at a certain kind of limitation or discordance or fear. It's exactly the same grace, because we're always being given exactly what is needed. We're always being guided. No one is left out, ever. It's impossible, because there's only one. So exactly the way that life is unfolding is exactly the grace that we are being offered. We're not creating in a personal way. The creation and what is being experienced is completely impersonal. It's one whole moving in itself, for itself, offering the possibility of opening to itself. So this whole unfolding is not about personal gain. It's not about selfish gain. It's not about someone getting somewhere. It's not about someone proving themselves. And in a way, this is the incredible wisdom of the natural gatekeeper of grace, is that no one enters full of desire. No one enters full of ideas, full of wanting. We can only enter empty. We can only enter in the frequency of surrender. We can only enter in the frequency of wide open heart, because it's as if we have to be a match. The frequency that we're resonating at has to be a match for grace. So when we are in the stillness, in the silence, we're resonating at a finer frequency, the frequency of being. The light resonance is subtler. And the more subtle the light resonance, the more that we are available for finer frequencies of grace, of intelligence to come online. This is why when we rest in silence, when we open to a field of fine frequency, such as satsang, or if you're sitting, if you're in retreat, that's why it's like the frequency refines and refines, because we're not moving from desire and need, which is a denser frequencies. But it just means that those denser frequencies will create the reflection of whatever is needed to refine. So it's not a good or bad or right or wrong scenario. It's one whole, seamless field of grace. And it's not a personal unfolding. So wherever any being seems to be is always as part of one whole, seamless field of grace. You can't do it right, you can't do it wrong. In a way, you can't even do it better. You can't try harder. These words, however they're interpreted, they're not coming as instruction. They're not coming as an encouragement to try harder, be better, do this more, work harder. They're not coming as that kind of instruction, although the filters of the mind may try to create that possibility. But that actually, the frequency of that is not here. It's not here at all. Yeah. The frequency that's here is you already are. You are love, you are joy. There is a wide open field of grace that is celebrating itself. And all that is here is this. The mind is dreaming. The celebration goes on. And the mind is dreaming. And the celebration goes on. The glory is shining. The divine light of wholeness is never divided, never lacking, never ever does it lose an iota of integrity of its wholeness. Wholeness is completely and utterly integral and pristine, has never left itself. Impossible. The frequency of perfect love is absolutely pristine. And the power, the force of this integrity, of this wholeness, is like a flow of perfect divine surrender. That what is almost, it is as if it is surrendering into itself, in pure devotion, flowing into itself, that the integrity is so all-encompassing that that flow is the power, the force, the glory itself. And whenever we enter our knowing, we're entering that force field. That's the field of grace. When we are in the frequency of knowing, in the stillness, in the silence, we are in the frequency of grace. We enter the force, the power of the divine. We enter the knowing field, the wide open heart that knows itself, only knows itself, knows no other. We enter it, and to whatever capacity or frequency we are resonating at, we will recognize. And that is why the integrity of wholeness is completely integral and whole. But where we are entering that and what we have the capacity to open to is where the reading of our own knowing will be, right? So that's why it can feel like, well, I don't feel like I'm fully open to the absolute divine wholeness. In a way, you're sipping the integrity of the divine wholeness. It's not that that connection is impaired in any way. It's that the filters and the obscurations that are like protections, essentially protecting you from the field of grace, like blocks to the light, to the love, that the sense of protection and conditioning has put in place. But the availability of wholeness and your connection and your belonging to wholeness is absolutely integral right now. But you don't enter that through the mind. You enter it in the silence, in the stillness of the heart. You enter it in the knowing, where the being knows its own beingness is a frequency of openness. It's like the portal of awakening, let's say, where the being knows its beingness is where the opening to the field is. And that is why we speak of drinking the nectar of bliss, the bliss of being. Because when you are in your knowing, the knowing, it's a finer frequency that is flowing within itself. In a way, it's flowing within itself to refine and purify itself. It's drinking the nectar that has the possibility of refining the nervous system and opening to more light, more fine, subtle frequencies. But of course, this has to happen through the subtle body. It doesn't happen through the mind consciousness, through the denser consciousness. It happens where the knowing of pure consciousness is awake and illumined, right? So where consciousness knows itself, there's a frequency, an opening, an aperture to the wide open field of grace. And here you're moving in that flow of knowing, you're moving in that field of grace, and the flow of bliss is able to enter the nervous system that seems to have been cut off and be resonating at a frequency of limitation, protection, conditioning. It's as if the hose that has been kinked starts to unkink, right? And a little bit more of a flow starts to be able to force its way through. And as it forces its way through, it's like a dam bursting. It's that powerful. It's like a dam bursting, and more of that fine frequency of light starts to get into the sense of my nervous system. And it starts to purify. And the purification can happen as the creative energy flows. It can create situations, appearances in the life that offer the possibility of purifying, purging, surfacing, so that natural transmutation can happen in this field of grace. That whatever surfaces as part of the flow, the flotsam and jetsam of our conditionings, start to surface and float around. And they are illuminated, all illuminated and transmuted in this field of grace, which essentially is a field of light resonating at a finer frequency. But depending on how open we are, how protected are we from that? And at the same time, of course, there's a wisdom to it all, that we open in increments, because that incremental refinement and purification is kind, right? We don't open incrementally to the knowing. We open, boom, the knowing, right? That's the clear knowing. I'm not the person. I'm not limited. I'm not separate from wholeness. Once the knowing of the being is online, I am the being, I am the presence. Once this is online, everything is happening in the wide open field of pure consciousness, flowing within itself to dispel and illuminate the seeming shadow patterns, the patterns of discordance, the patterns of like corruption and discombobulation, the patterns that play as disturbance. But there's a wisdom to how all of this flows. And when we really recognize that this whole unfolding is not personal, it doesn't matter what arises on the surface of life, that there's this willingness just to receive it, allow whatever happens in the body, but know the subtlety of the joy and contentedness and simplicity of being that is never touched, never ever touched. This is where the knowing grows, where the knowing flourishes. More light comes in, is in the knowing that this being is never touched. Whatever comes in, awareness sees the happenings, but awareness itself is never affected. Nothing ever destabilizes the pure aware being. Nothing ever destabilizes the purity that you are. And so we're opening, and it feels like expansion. It feels to the me like expansion. But of course, what's really happening is the patterns and the conditionings that act as obscurations and are holding are being dropped. They're unwinding, letting go. And as there's a letting go, more ability to subtly perceive the fine frequencies and a sense of opening and expanding, a sense of opening into the wide open field of grace, this field of creative intelligence that's flowing as pure inspiration. Pure creativity. That the wisdom is supreme in how it moves and what it brings forward. But if we feel bound, if we feel stuck, we're only ever a thought away. We're only ever a relaxation away from dropping into the awareness that's always here. Awareness never goes anywhere. We're only ever a nano atom away. It's about just turning in the right direction. It's like turning away from the sun and saying, I see no sun. The sun is not out. There is no sun. And just to turn, oh, the sun is radiantly shining. It's just which direction are you looking in? Are you looking in the direction of the mind and the seeming disturbance? Or are you looking in the direction of being? What is being invited is that we are looking in the direction of the being. You know, the essence of all of the great wisdom teachings is really inviting us, turn to what you know is true, not what you know with the mind, but turn to the knowing of the heart. Turn to the light within. Turn to the stillness, turn to the silence. Turn to the sense of the longing for God, the glory, the longing for the mother. Turn to where the knowing of presence is. Turn to yourself. Turn to love, the frequency of love. Whatever it takes, turn to, align with, by whatever means, whatever avenue you have, turn to yourself. Turn to the stillness, to the silence, to the presence of being, of just being here. And allow the fine frequency of being to saturate this whole moment until you can truly feel, is this being disturbed by anything? How wide, how big, how vast is this being? Do you find any edges to this sense of being? Do you find anything other than this being? And if it seems that you find anything other, look upon what you find. Look upon what seems to be discordant and feel it in the nervous system as sensation, as frequency. Feel it as aliveness. Look upon it as awareness, as the aware being that is boundless and undisturbed. Illuminate. Be the light. You're the light. You're the awareness. You're not the story. You're not the patterns. You don't need to work through the mindscape to untangle the patterns. It will just send you round and round in circles. It will never be resolved. There will always be more. Allow the wisdom to surface the unconscious through the play of life. If you start digging around in the unconscious, thinking that you're going to get to the bottom, you're going to spend a lot of time in the quagmire of the unconscious, feeling burdened by the darkness of what is hidden. The unconscious is so much more enormous than we even imagine. And that is why if we start to dig around in the unconscious, we can move in ways that are on a certain level, not fully aligned with the wisdom. It's like not trusting the wisdom, not trusting the glory, not trusting the divine plan. And really all that that demonstrates is that the unity, the frequency of unity, the frequency of aligning with the wisdom hasn't come online yet. There's still a sense of me, the doer, me that wants to dig around, me that's going to do this work psychologically, me that thinks that this technique is going to work, right? If we move from the me, we will keep being being given the reflection so that we hand over the sense of me to the divine, that we hand over the sense of doership, the sense of I know something. It's okay, God, I've got this. I've got a plan that's better than yours, right? But we can keep trying that, but we will be humbled and humbled and humbled until such a shifting consciousness comes where the divine surrender just lets go and lets God. It's like we stop traveling on the train, carrying our burdens and our suitcases on our heads and shoulders. It's like traveling on a train with a backpack on, a suitcase in each arm, one on each shoulder and one on your head, right? And you're on the train and you're being jostled around, but you're desperately trying to keep hold of all of your baggage, right? Lay the baggage down. Let the current of grace, let the flow of your knowing carry you. Notice that it's only the me and the mind that says, I need to work on this. I need to work on this. I need to work on this. I need to process this. You don't. The wisdom is greater. The wisdom is an intelligence that knows. The mind could say, yes, but I've tried that and it hasn't worked, so I need to try something else. The truth is, it hasn't actually been fully lived. The release into the purity of consciousness hasn't fully happened, because once we come to the pure open field, once we come to the field of being, there's a natural flow of surrender that's happening, a natural flow of surrender that's happening. It's not that discordance doesn't arise, but we meet it in the nervous system. We allow the wisdom, we allow the releasing to happen. We allow everything to come forward in the field of grace, because the knowing is that everything that's moving and changing is the play, and what I am is the being. And we also have to have this knowing, this absolute, unmoving, unchanging light aperture in place. Otherwise, again, we'll just keep cycling around. We'll just keep cycling around. But it's cycling around a maze. Freedom is a thought away. Freedom is that movement just to be aware and to recognize that awareness is aware. You can't hide here in awareness. There's a whole rebalancing that has to happen. It doesn't work to hide in awareness, but it works to recognize that who you are in truth is the awareness. You are the aware being, the presence. And this opens the wide open field of the flow of your knowing and the flow of intelligence to intelligently bring forward everything that is needed in life to companion and reflect what is needed to be known and seen, surfaced and met, transmuted, purified and refined, so that we deepen and we deepen and we are humbled out of the idea of the me. We're humbled into the wide open field, the glory light, a wide open field of resonant light. And as we open to this wide open field, we have more capacity in the subtle knowing of what we are, in the flow of consciousness. We have more capacity in the purity of the flow of consciousness to refine the field of the unified field where the refinement is happening, is this flow of grace where everything is brought into the remembering that there's only one. Everything is being brought in, every thought, every concept, every protection, every object, every idea, everything is being brought into it's like a process of unifying everything. But the unifying happens in your consciousness. The unifying happens in the field. It doesn't happen in the mind. It happens in the felt sense. There's only one. This is all the same. It happens as the protections fall away. It's a refinement in the subtle body. It's a refinement where the light takes over. The light starts to illuminate everything, and the wisdom field transmutes the discordance, releases the patterns of limitation, releases all of the patterns that are holding into the remembrance of the one flow, the one essence nature. And so the more we are resting in the stillness, the silence, the simplicity of being, the bliss is here, and the bliss is a flow, the flow of knowing. The flow feels like a flow of aliveness. It's as if we often come first to the peace in the stillness and the silence. We come to the stop, the peace. And in the peace, there's a knowing, and the knowing moves as a flow. Now, the flow is actually the flow of life. It's the flow of intelligence, the flow of creation. And the flow is flowing to give creation back to its creator. Give the creation of my life, my story back to the creator. And in this process, we realize, wow, I'm not who I thought I was. I'm not what I thought I was. And this life is not the way I thought it was. We start surrendering all of the ideas of how we are held captive by the mind. We start surrendering our conditionings and the concepts, ideas, and beliefs. We start surrendering it naturally, not through doing, but through being. The flow of the field of grace can flow, the bliss can flow and purify and refine. And the nervous system, which is the consciousness knowing itself, the illumination of the subtle body, the light body, gets more and more refined. In a way, it starts off as as we open, first of all, like an energy body, like a pranic body, like a subtle body. But the subtle body, as it refines, let's say refines into the remembrance of the light body, the body of light, that this is just an appearance, that what you are in truth is a flow of resonant light, a flow of bliss, that you're not the body, you're not the density, you're not what you think you are. And it's when we open to the infinite possibility and the unfathomable that we start to refine in ways that we cannot know with the mind, that we're being refined out of the density of mind consciousness, and we're being refined into a flow of light intelligence, that the mind doesn't operate in the same way. The mind doesn't operate through all of the protective mechanisms. They are dispelled. The density is dispelled into light. So we don't move in the same protective mechanisms of shame and guilt and blame and projection and reaction. We just don't move in those ways anymore because we're refining those habitual ways, those patterns of limitation, right? So perhaps you can notice as refinement is happening that these ways that we were once so ingrained in, the way the collective works, we don't jump and we don't move in these ways like, well, this is just the way it is. We start to open and there's more awareness, more consciousness. There's more light in the way of our functioning, that we don't move in these ways of assumption. Even if we get tricked and trapped at times, of course we do. It's part of the way that things purify, is that we get carried into the tricks and the traps. We get carried into these places so that we have the ability to see clearly, for clear vision to come. Because when clear vision comes, it's the light of illumination. Wow, okay, there's a holding pattern, there's a conditioning. Wow, yeah, that's how I've been protecting that. We start to illuminate and see, in the whole life is this incredible flow of illuminating constantly, illuminating constantly all of the ways that we're holding ourselves in subtle protections and conditioning, that none of it is personal. And we don't care about what gets revealed or what gets unraveled because we're not afraid of being outed because there's no one to be outed. There's no one to be revealed. There's no one to defend anymore, right? We don't need to. So another way that we can see that we're really opening is that we let go of our defenses. We even have this capacity to reveal our defenses in front of the ones that we might have really held our defenses in, just as information, not even as a big deal, like, oh, I have to reveal something to you, a big exposing, right? It's more like, wow, I was really stuck there. It's almost just like the whole tension goes out of it. I was so defended. Wow, right? The freedom that's here means that there's no more drama around it. It's not like, wow, I'm so sorry and blah, 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 blah. It's just, wow, that's gone. Fantastic, right? It's not the way the mind imagines. The mind imagines drama and hardship. The mind imagines, the way that it's bound. It imagines, but it's just not the way that it is. It's not, of course, that there's not intensity as the shifting of perspective is happening, as the releasing is happening. But the wisdom comes in and says, wow, this is really intense. What if this is not personal? Wow, that feels different. What if this is in service? Wow, that feels different. Just as we keep shifting away from, oh God, what's happening? This is so hard, right? We shift away from that. What if this is just a machine that's just running a wash cycle, right? What if this is just a machine that's just running through a cycle of purification and it's tumbling around and it's dragging out and detoxing, it's purifying? What if it's not personal? What if you don't make it mean anything? Or what if there's something that wants to make it mean something and you just watch that one and hold that one in a frequency of love that says, I know that this feels like it's a story. I know this feels like it's personal. And I'm here. And I'm going to stay right here so that you realize that it's not personal, that it's not what you think it is. You're not being punished. Nothing bad is happening to you. I'm right here, shining the light so that you can realize that it's not the way you think it is. This is not a punishing world. This is not a punishing God. This is not a realm of hardship. This is a realm of infinite possibility. This is a realm where the possibility is to transform the ignorance of darkness, of separation, to dispel that and be the light that illuminates and clarifies and refines and brings clear vision. This is a realm where this is possible. And let's say the apparatus of the human is fully equipped to take this all the way. The apparatus of the human experience is like a wisdom body, a bliss body that's absolutely fully equipped to know itself as wholeness, right? This is so extraordinary that we're fully equipped in our human experience. We're equipped to be absolutely tangled in the darkness, and we're equipped to move all the way through the process of refinement that is the human life, to know the absolute wholeness and glory of God, to remember the principle that is within us can actually be lived fully. We're absolutely equipped because the soul light is in us, and what we are made of is light, is intelligence, is a flow of consciousness. We're fully equipped with all of the layers in the seen and the unseen. We're fully equipped to carry this all the way to its fulfillment. Let's say, as a collective, we're in the early stages, but we're fully equipped, fully equipped. Be you a pioneer? Be you part of the movement of light? Be you part of this incredible movement? And of course, wherever there's such a movement, that's the flow. It's the flow of the knowing. It's the movement of refinement. It's the flow of grace. It's the flow of divine surrender. It's the flow of pure devotion. And it's the flow of the power, of the force, of the magnetic field of the divine that sows a longing in us, that when we open to our longing, the longing itself is that magnetic force field, right? We can all confirm that once that longing opens, you cannot do anything. Nothing will keep you away. And nothing will keep you away from what resonates, right? And whether that comes in as a book or something that you hear that resonates, you get drawn into it, you're so compelled, whether it presents as a teacher, a guru, a guide, a companion, it's so compelling, right? You can't say no to it. Whether it appears as some kind of journey that you have to make or a mountain of light, right? There's nothing that you can do that will stop you, because the pull into your heart is a magnetic force field. You're being pulled in to the divine remembrance. And however it appears on the surface is going to be unique according to your laws of nature. You're going to be pulled in a way that will resonate and create all the alignments, like a key unlocking, right? Going through a key or a safety deposit combination, right? It's like we uniquely move through a unique combination of unlockings that's created by the wisdom. And when we follow the truth of the heart, like an autonomy of the heart, because we're following then the inspiration that the divine is giving us, right? Follow this. I feel compelled. And if we don't listen to the mind, no, you mustn't do that. You can't afford that. Oh, what will people say? No, 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 not that, right? It shouldn't look that way. If we don't follow all of the mind's ideas that stop us unlocking the lock, we follow, like we know, the heart knows, the yes, the yes, the yes. Have to say yes to this. Sometimes even when the mind could see the dangers of conditioning of a repeat, is there something here? Oh, I'm not sure, but the heart saying yes. It's an invitation because we're being invited into layers of purification and refinement that only certain situations will bring forward the exact combination of nuances that will trigger us perfectly and create exactly what is needed to go deeper. That the whole field of grace plays as a game of life that is uniquely playing out to free us. That we're being invited not to get stuck in the Maya, but to be freed from the Maya when we follow the heart, right? We get stuck in the Maya where we follow the mind, where we're identified with the mind. It's about following the heart, letting that unique combination of unlocking of the conditions and protections happen so that you're following the light. You're following what doesn't make sense to the mind. It feels counterintuitive to the mind. But what's happening is you're opening to true intuition. You're opening to align with the flow, the longing, the true intuitive knowing of the heart. And that's where we're moving out of a way of conditioned life. Like, this is the way it is. This is the way I move. These are the things I do. These are the things I'm good at. This is what I eat. This is how I function. These are my patterns. These are my habits. We're being pulled into situations that absolutely shake it up, where we don't know anything. We don't even know what we eat. We don't know how to be, because we're having it all shaken up. It's not like, this is how I earn my money. This is what my job is. It's like, no, no, no. Let it all be shaken up. Let it all be shaken up by the pull of the heart that says, okay, The heart says this. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And when we say yes to the heart and we move in ways that seem totally counterintuitive, we're saying, yes, I'm listening. Yes, I'm listening. I'm attuning and something unlocks. I'm attuning and something unlocks. And we see more clearly. We resonate more finely. The subtle body, the light body, is more illumined. It makes no sense to the mind, right? You can be like a vegan for all these years, and suddenly you just know that you've got to eat that fish burger, right? Like, no, and your mind's saying, no way, I won't do it, I won't do it. But you can feel like, oh my God, I think I've got to eat this. I've got to eat this. And the mind's going, no, it's going to contaminate my whole digestive system. I'm going to be sick. It's like, no, I can feel it. I can feel, yes. And if you don't let the mind interfere and you just let things happen, it unlocks something. It unlocks the righteousness that comes with veganism, right? No, this is the right way. That's the wrong way. It unlocks something. It stops you being divided by your veganism. It stops you being divided by an idea. I'm right. I know the way. All those people are wrong. Because suddenly, you're one of those people. You just ate a fish burger or a lamb burger or whatever you did, right? You just ate a big sausage roll, right? And suddenly your righteousness has gone. That division has gone because you just crossed the bridge of where you were separating yourself. And it's not to do with anything that you think it's to do with. It's about dismantling the patterns and listening to the heart. It's dismantling all the ways we keep ourselves trapped, right? It's dismantling all of these ideas of who I am. It's dropping away all of the ideas and protections of what makes me me. This is what makes me me. Well, what if there's a whole new landscape of what you are that's undiscovered, and it's an infinite field of possibility, and there's things that you've never explored, and there's things that you don't know about how the apparatus functions, right? We're made of light. We're made of intelligence. We are flows of intelligence. We're not static concrete. We're not the physicality. We're not the me. We're not the story. And if we limit ourselves in ideas that we know how this all functions and what this is, we limit the possibility of flowering, of flourishing in this incredible realm of human experience, right? It's like, will we stay limited in the human condition, or will we flourish as the divine, dancing as human? Will we flourish, blossom, flow, be the beacon of light, be the embodiment of love, be the flow of living inspiration? What if we're willing to not live by the rules that the mind has made? Because the play is constantly morphing. It's a divine Leela, right? The divine Leela is a divine play. It is God dancing in God. It is the mother dancing in her own heart, her musings, her creation. She's ecstatic. Look at what the endless possibilities, right? The life is her heart. The life is her breath. The life is her musings. It's not static. So let's not be static, held in our ideas and protections. Let's surrender into the light, into the joy, into the celebration, into the bliss of being. And let's be carried. Let's find out what is possible. Let's find out together what this adventure is all about, where it's carrying us, what is possible. Let's find out. Let's journey into the unfathomable, unknowable, unexplainable. Let's celebrate. Let's live this joy. Let's free the patterns of discordance so that we can live wild, untamed, and in this infinite field of possibilities, dancing as light and refining into the finer and finer frequencies, getting closer and closer to what we cannot even imagine is possible. The principle of illumination is in us as a soul light, as a knowing. Let us use what we have been given. Let us use the grace of what we have been given and stop being fooled by the ideas of the modern world, the civilized world, the collective consciousness that's stuck in celebration, stuck in separation. How close these words are sometimes, my goodness. Right? Let us celebrate that there is no separation. Not in truth, not in truth. That we don't follow the beliefs and the ideas and the concepts. That we follow only the flow of our own knowing, only the celebration of the heart. Knowing that what can free us is the wisdom itself. That we don't know how to free the mind. We don't know how to do this. So we hand it over to the field of grace. We hand it over to the wisdom light flowing. We say, okay, your way, your way, your way. Sounds very like Yahweh. We hand it over to the divine. We let the life be an offering, a prayer. And the prayer is the willingness to just rest here in the presence of being. The prayer is this willingness to let go into the wide open field of the fine frequency of the knowing, to resonate as the being. That the prayer is opening to the field of grace and just resting here. Letting the light touch everything that it can illuminate, just in the resting. It's like opening to this wisdom light, this atmosphere of grace, where you can feel the fine frequency, the bliss of being flowing. Nothing to do, just to rest in the simple joy of being here and watch as it unfolds.